Welcome to episode 317 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm actually Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing actor, director, producer, and writer Stephen Chase. He started out as an actor. He started producing stuff to have stuff that he could star in. He's produced nearly 20 feature films and has written and directed many of those. And now he's just completed another feature film called Stan the Man, which he wrote, directed, and produced and starred in. So we talk about the early days of his career, kind of how he got going, and then we dig into this movie specifically and talk about how this movie got made. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 317. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Once again, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing writer, director, producer, and actor Stephen Chase. Here is the interview. Welcome, Stephen, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Well, I was born in Newark, New Jersey, and came to Staten Island when I was probably like about 5 or 6 years old. We moved there, and I was always interested in somehow in the entertainment that didn't know quite what I wanted to do. Got magic and started getting drum lessons, and wanted to be a rock star at one point, but that all faded. So years went by, and I always try to figure out, what kind of moves can I make to get in the business. So, I did have a relative. I don't know if you know who he is. His name is Jack Klugman. He's from The Odd Couple and Quincy.
Sure.
Yeah, he's my cousin. Well, he passed away, but he was my cousin. He was my father's mother's sister's son. So my grandmother's sister's son. And, I guess the blood, it's in the bloodstream, and always had that feeling of being an actor. So I went to New York and went to a school called HB Studios and started learning the craft, and really enjoyed it. And, working and collaborating with other actors, I started getting these, small little acting jobs at NYU. And then I, started graduate feature films. And I believe the first feature film that I was ever cast in was a movie with Eric Roberts, Megan Gallagher, Red Buttons, James Earl Jones. And that was the first movie that I ever done. So, I caught the bug right away and worked with all the famous casting directors and started to get a little name for myself, and just started working my way up. And then I moved to Florida after, 6 or 7 years in the business. And then I started working in the Florida circuit. And that went pretty good, too. I did various plays and commercials and as many feature films as I could, audition for and also book. Mm-hmm. And then one day I, just said to myself, I need to figure it out and, write a film for myself, write it like Sylvester Stallone did and I started to write this romantic comedy that I wrote myself in the lead called Shut Up and Kiss Me. I ended up not playing the lead because of, the Hollywood, nonsense. So I stepped down and just took a smaller role, but I was a producer and the writer of the actual movie. So it did really well, and we shot it
And let
on
me
35
and let me stop you.
millimeter.
Let me stop you there just with a couple follow up questions. Just real quick, I'm curious. What was the motivation for moving from New York to Florida? That seems like it would be very counterintuitive for a guy that's coming up through the ranks.
Well, it was just a bunch of events that occurred leading me to Florida. I didn't move there for a career move. I kind of moved there to help my dad out. My dad needed to move to Fort Lauderdale, and I took a ride with him and ended up staying there myself because the weather's so beautiful, and I just got tired of, the cold weather in New York. It's just unbelievable in those winter months. So I gave it a shot and signed up with some agents, and it seemed to be really good at the time. So that's how I made it to Florida.
Gotcha. Now, a follow-up question on your screenplay, Shut Up and Kiss Me. How did you sell that? Maybe you can describe that process. I know screenwriters are always asking that question. Well, how do you sell it? Maybe you can give us a little insight. At this point, you have an acting career going, so you know a lot of people in the industry. But how did you get an agent first? Did you just meet some producers? How did that actually sell?
You mean after we shot the film?
No, I'm saying for Shut Up and Kiss Me, how did you actually get the screenplay sold? What were some of those steps you took to get this thing into place?
I never sold it. I produced it. I wrote the screenplay.
Oh, I got you.
And I mailed out I mailed out the submissions to a few producers in LA. And I got turned down a couple of times, and then I didn't give up. And I kept going, and finally I got a yes. And I was invited to California, Hollywood, to meet with a Hollywood producer, and she basically loved screenplay, work with us, with my partner and myself. And we, that was history right there. We raised the money ourselves.
And so what was the reaction? Because I get a lot of screenwriters coming to me. They're an actor, exactly in your position, where they've written a script. They're an actor, and they want to put themselves in the lead, or a director, or something along those lines. What was the reaction you got? You said, "Hey, I want to be the star." And at this point, I mean, you had a lot of acting credits, so it doesn't seem like it would be that far fetched for you to be the lead in this movie. But what was the reaction you got, and what was sort of the motivation ultimately for saying, "Okay, I'll take a secondary role in this project"?
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing because you set your mind to playing one of the leads. The reason being is they just didn't feel at the time that the game would sell a movie. The distribution, it wouldn't worked out. That's the reason being, only distribution. And it's sad, but it's true. And I didn't. At the time, I didn't feel strong enough to fight it. I was just happy enough to make the movie, and I believed that I would have my chances later on. So I kind of stepped down from it and just took a smaller role. And the movie was pretty good. I mean, we shot on 35 millimeter. We shot it in Florida. A lot of company moves, a lot of cameras. I mean, the whole 9 yards. Hollywood came to Florida. And shot a great movie and did really well. We got picked up by American World Pictures and went on to do great things. So I made the right choice.
Yeah. So, well, perfect. That's a good little bit of insight. So let's dig into your latest film, Stan the Man. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick pitch or logline. What is this film all about?
Well, Stan the Man was, I manifested the character and created the story during a shoot I was doing as well. I was working on a movie called Garlic and Gunpowder, a comedy, buddy movie, and I don't know how it happened or what. If I hit my head on a toilet bowl seat or something, like Dr. Brown, but all I could say is that the idea just manifested quickly. So it was just a week left the shooting Garlic, and I was already, writing notes. I do a lot of stuff shorthand, on a legal pad. So I just started writing down, and I was always a big fan of Dudley Moore and Arthur. So it kind of like, it was that kind of feel that I wanted, but I also wanted to get on like a touch on something like a spiritual feeling, something that's biblical as well. So I wanted to have the combination, and it was just it moved pretty fast, the screenplay. I mean, I had pretty much a lot of notes ready to go, and I knew where I was going to shoot the movie. I had a lot of help with the locations, and I knew I was going to be hands-on, so I knew I could alter the dialogue and the current locations for where we were going to shoot. And so basically, it's about a really a guy that he wasn't a bad guy, but he just didn't have it together. He just didn't understand that he was breaking a lot of cardinal sins. He just wasn't on the right track. His mom, from above was trying to give him signals, but he just didn't see it because he was having too much fun and too much distractions, too much noise. So it became a gamble. Not a hardcore drinker, but he liked to dabble in it, and he definitely was a big, womanizer. So that's really where the story goes. And then, we have the arc where, he meets with the, I don't want to give away the story, but he meets up with the angel to give him a second chance in life.
I gotcha. So let's talk about the writing of the screenplay and the collaboration. On IMDb, there's a Zachary Sassim who has an original story credit and then a co-writer credit with Robin DiMartino. Maybe you can kind of just describe that process. Did you guys get in the same room? Once you had this outline, did you give it to them? Did you get feedback? Maybe just describe sort of the process of collaborating with these other writers.
The collaboration was that I came up with the storyline. And I already knew Zachary because he worked on another movie with me called Garlic and Gunpowder, which I just spoke about. So I told, Zachary about, how I would like, the story to be and, the characters and basically, let's get a real draft up quick. So we got that together, but there was something missing. I wasn't quite happy with it, and I just didn't have, the patience anymore to go over any more notes with Zachary, even though, he did the best he could. So then I went to my casting director, Robin DiMartino, and I sent over her my notes, and she started collaborating with me, and things started really making sense. Basically, the first draft I did with Zachary, but then the draft that was actually shot was a collaboration of me and Robin DiMartino.
I gotcha. Perfect. So let's talk about your writing process. Where do you typically write? Are you have a home office? Are you a guy that likes to write at Starbucks? What does that look like for you?
Writing could be anywhere. I could be outside in a park bench. I could be outside in the back of my yard. Sometimes, I'll get ideas in a car and I'll pull over and write it down. I mean, it could happen anytime, anywhere. And then I just combine all the notes, and then I'll come home into my home, start to, put the sentences together, basically, as they say, start to write the dialogue, start, the characters, and figure out what's going to work and what's not. And you know what? You could do a whole screenplay, and I've done it, and only a couple of, 5% of it sticks into the screenplay. It just evolves. Things change. It's just there's no controlling it either. It's I think that you just get a feeling of like a God thing that comes through you to start jotting down new notes every day. One day it sounds like it's going to work out.
Yep. How much time do you spend preparing when you're doing the outline in this outlining stage? How much time do you spend in the outline stage versus how much time do you spend actually in final draft writing scene descriptions, character descriptions, dialogue, and that sort of thing?
Gosh, it's just a real process, like a real process that happens through writing all of it at one time, like the complete screenplay. So I just break it up into scenes, and then I figure out, where I'm going to shoot it. So I know the location pretty much because I've been shooting the last few movies in Temecula. So I know. So it all takes place in my mind as a location. Then I think about the actor, and then the actor saying the dialogue. So, and then I just type it all together. Robin and I we get into the program and we just start, hammering away whatever the notes that we have.
Yeah, yeah. So what does your development process look like? It sounds like, once you got going with Robin, things were going pretty well in terms of the script, but did you then finish a draft and send it to some other people to get notes and then do more rewrites? What did that process look like?
No, not at all. We didn't send it out to anybody. The screenplay was the screenplay. We just made alterations and revised things that we needed to, so that we can make the days in, days out. But no, this is what in-house. Robin and I, we wrote the final screenplay, Stand the Man together.
I gotcha. And how do you approach screenplay structure? There's the very sort of formulaic templates, Sid Field, Blake Snyder. A lot of writers I have on are a little more freeform. How did you guys approach screenplay structure with this?
Magic Screenwriting, the program. That's the best way. Yeah.
And what sort of genre requirements did you feel this needed to have? I mean, it's kind of a romantic comedy. Is there certain tropes that you wanted to use, or certain tropes you wanted to subvert?
Yeah, it just kind of developed through the idea of just having this character just go through life, just like Dudley Moore, like that's where I got it from. So it was just, that kind of a feel, the whole time. I really wasn't thinking rom-com, it just happened to just happen. I didn't really say, oh, I'm going to set out to do this genre. It wasn't like that, Now these days you really need to know, for distribution, because things have really changed because of all the online platforms and, the DVD stuff that's happening. It's calmed down and the market's slow. So you really need to know your genre. You need to know what your audience, who you're going after, especially as an independent filmmaker. So, yeah, it's just, the business is changing very quickly. So you really need to know everything before you get, sink your teeth into a script, because you don't want to waste your time on writing a screenplay that you're not going to be able to, get produced.
Yeah, for sure. Sound advice. Okay, so once you were done with the script, you had a draft that you guys were happy. It sounds like you had a lot of locations, a lot of actors in place. What was your next steps to actually getting some production funding in place? Did you have some financiers that you'd worked with before? Did you go to them? Did you get new financiers? And I'm just some general advice, because I get a lot of people come to me, hey, how can I raise money for my screenplay? It sounds like you've done it a number of times. So maybe you can just kind of tell us specifically about this one, and then in general, some advice you might have.
That's exactly. I made a few phone calls to people that have already invested in the films, and they were happy to do it. They usually come in also to and visit the set while we're shooting. Sometimes they bring their family members, and we put them in as extras. But that's exactly how it went. Just a few phone calls. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So on IMDb page, it looks like you're transitioning to be more of a producer, director, writer in addition to your acting. And maybe you can talk about that transition. Are you becoming more excited by writing and directing? Are you writing and directing just to give yourself acting parts? That kind of sounds like how it initially started out. But sort of where do you see yourself? How is that transition going, and where do you see yourself in 5 years?
It seems that way. That producing and acting and directing all goes together. What happens is that you get disappointed through some of the work you've done, and you feel like, you know what, the only way you can get it done the way you want it done is to be hands-on. So, that's pretty much what happened to me. I just feel that who's going to do it better than me and knows the story better than me if I'm the one directing it, And I tell you, directing is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
it's a hard work. It's a hard. Yeah. But it's great. It's a. I think that at one point every actor should get a chance to direct one of their own films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, what's next for you? What do you have in the pipeline?
Well, I have a movie coming out called Frankie's Redemption that I shot in May, and that's pretty. It's getting wrapped up, and Avail Films is going to be also be handling distribution for that film. Also, I have a movie that I've been actually in rewrites right now called Too Hot to Trot, and it's about two kind of like how do you say, they're not like real wise guys. They're just really like guys that just made some bad choices in life, and they actually get a gambling debt going, and they stumble onto a horse that can talk, and the horse actually, they take them to the track, and the horses, the thoroughbreds, actually talk to the other horse and let them know the winners of the horse.
That's a great premise. So I like to wrap up the interviews just by asking the guests what they've seen recently that they thought was great. And again, this is geared towards screenwriters. So are there any movies, TV shows, Netflix, Hulu, wherever, shows you've seen recently that you thought the writing was really, really stellar and you'd recommend to other screenwriters?
The only show that I could actually say that about is Breaking Bad. That was the one show that I know that was unbelievable writing, and now they have another, like a spin-off of it. Something Saul, the guy that was in there, they have another
Better Call
show.
Saul. Yeah.
So that's and Sopranos was fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. How can people see Stan the Man? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
The release schedule releases tomorrow, I believe, on the 4th.
Okay, February 4th. Okay, perfect. Well, Stephen, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. The one last question I give everybody is, what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I will round up for the show notes.
Oh, yeah, I'm on Instagram at Chasebo1, Chase, like my last name, 1, and also on Facebook with Stephen Chase.
Perfect. As I said, I'll round those up for the show notes. Again, Stephen, I really appreciate your coming on the show and taking a few minutes to talk with me. Good luck with this film, and happy to have you on in the future when you finish another one of your films.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and you have a great day.
You too. We'll talk to you later. Bye. A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, character, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write your logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase this service as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your screenplay gets a recommend or a consider from one of our readers, you get to list the screenplay in the SYS Select database, which is a database for producers to find screenplays and a big part of our SYS Select program. Producers are in the database searching for material on a daily basis, so it's another great way to get your material in front of them. As a further bonus, if your script gets a recommend from one of our readers, your screenplay will get included in our monthly Best Of newsletter. Each month we send out a newsletter that highlights the best screenplays that have come through our script analysis service. This is a monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively looking for material. So again, this is another great way to get your material out there. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. To wrap things up, I just want to touch on a few things from today's interview with Steven. I really like what he said about his first project that he wrote so that he could star in it, but ultimately he had to relinquish the lead role to get the movie made. Sometimes those sorts of practical decisions must be made. One of the marks of a real writer, at least I think, is that they don't ever get too tied to any one specific piece of work. Real writers are always writing new stuff. They're always finishing new stuff. So there's always this sort of attitude like, whatever, I can always write a new script. I can always generate new material. And that's really what a good writer can do. It's not about just one script. I can't tell you how many emails I get from people who have written one script. It took them 5 years or 10 years to write. And now they're wondering how they can retain creative control over the project. They put so much time into it. And there's really only one answer for a novice writer that has one script. They have to go out and raise the money themselves. Like, that's the only way they're going to maintain creative control, because no one is going to finance a film with an inexperienced writer who's making all sorts of creative demands. It just doesn't work like that. That's not how the business works. If you go back and listen to my story of how I broke into the business with my first spec script sale, it's actually episode number 2 on the podcast. You'll see me and my writing partner, we had to do something similar to what Steven's talking about. As the option was going forward, we kind of knew that they weren't going to make what we considered to be a good script. They had done a lot of rewriting on it, and but ultimately we decided, and there was some dates that they missed, and the option actually expired, and I don't think they were fully aware with it. They were real busy trying to in pre-production, and so the option actually did expire, and we could have just gone and said, no, we're not selling you the script. But ultimately, we made the decision. We felt like we could write more scripts. Why not get a credit, get something produced, get one on the board, make a little bit of money, be a produced screenwriter. And they were going to do a good job in terms of the casting, the production value. They did have some money behind them. So, we made the decision, and it was painful. We knew the script was not going to be the movie that we had written, or the movie was not going to be the script that we had written. But again, these other things just sort of outweighed it. And we always just sort of felt like, we can write more scripts. And you know what? We did. We sat down and we wrote a couple more scripts that were very similar in sort of tone and everything else. And to be honest, I think the newer scripts, we wrote 2 more that were very similar, sort of, young guys, discovering themselves, finding themselves, sort of those Jack Kerouac on the road type scripts. A lot of, people in their 20s write. So we wrote this one, Dish Dogs, which sold. And then, again, we wrote 2 more after that. And I think the 2 more after that were actually better. We just kept getting better as writers. We listened to the feedback. What was the problem with Dish Dogs? Why did they want to rewrite it? What mistakes did we make? And I think these other scripts were better. So that's my parting advice for today. Don't be too precious with your material. Sometimes it's okay to let them bastardize it if you can still move your career forward a little bit. And believe me, I know how painful this can be, because pretty much every spec script that I've sold that got produced ended up the same way. Even the ones that didn't get produced, I know what the scripts look like. I have a couple scripts that I sold that didn't get produced, and but the producers were doing rewrites and going in directions that I didn't necessarily want to go. And to be honest with you, that's been one of my decisions, one of the pieces that helped me make the decision to be more of a producer and a director, is to try and get some of these films finished in a way that creatively I do maintain control. But you'll notice I talk about this on my own podcast. It's all about the raising of the money. It's about, if you raise the money, you're in control of where it goes. But if you're just looking to be a screenwriter, sell scripts, it's going to take many, many, many years, many, many successful films before you as a writer really has any kind of real power. And to be honest with you, I don't know that there's any writers. Like, I don't know there's anybody that I can really name. Certainly guys like Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, but those guys are writing and directing. They're not just writing. So I don't know that there's anybody in Hollywood, even the biggest screenwriter on the planet. I don't know that he really has a lot of creative control ultimately, unless he's also directing and potentially producing. But certainly he's got to be at least produce on a feature film, and ideally the writer would direct, again, to maintain that creative control. Anyways, parting advice, don't be too precious for your material. Always go out about it with that attitude that, hey, they can bastardize this script, I'll get a credit, I'll make a little bit of money, and I'll move my career forward. And by the way, I can always go write a better script, more scripts. That's really what you're going to have to do to be a professional screenwriter. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.